Get started. So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. Maybe we've got some friends based over west. But welcome to our Power Platform for Local Government webinar. Thank you for taking time out of your day. We've got a packed session, so please do try and stick around to the end if possible. We've got some awesome demos by some of our partners and by one of our ISV vendors that have developed IP within Power Platform. So please try and stick around for the full hour if you can. We will be sharing the content, the recording, and all of the slides post-session as well. So if you need to share with other people within council, then please do. So I guess we'll get started. So the theme for today is really how you can start to manage some of your council workloads on a unified business platform. We'll show you how you can start to I guess, operationalize and accelerate some of your existing investments within Microsoft. So, whether that's across Teams, it might be across Power BI, Office, or you may already be on the journey with Power Platform. We'll really show you how you can start to bring some of those investments to life. So I guess the main topic today is really around automation. How can we provide a set of tools to enable citizen developers to really help drive efficiency across council with a low to no code environment? It might be an idea, hopefully everyone can still hear me okay, but it might be an idea just to turn off your videos unless you're presenting or if you ask a question, just to preserve a bit of bandwidth, and maybe put yourself on mute. That would be greatly appreciated. I can't guarantee that my 6-month-old baby will start crying at some point, so you'll have to excuse if there's background noise. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? So a brief agenda, I guess, of today's run sheet. I'll start by providing an overview of Power Platform, of some of the value drivers that it can bring to council. I've got some examples of other councils work with these set of tools. So we'll kind of run through some of the use cases that other councils are targeting within the platform itself. I'll then hand over firstly to Velrada, one of our key partners across Power Platform with vast experience within local government, to really showcase some of the work that they've done with other councils. We'll then pass over to Sensei, again, one of our key partners who have developed some IP around work, project and portfolio management, again, all developed on Power Platform. Like I say, we'll leave some time for Q&A towards the end, but what I suggest, if you do have a sort of burning question that pops up, maybe drop it into the chat. We'll see if someone can answer that as we start to go through the content. But like I say, we'll open it up towards the end for Q&A. The final piece is really that call to action. So look, most councils are really at different stages of their journey with Power Platform. And so we'll really provide some options around how you can either get started on your journey with Power Platform or some of those more advanced enablement resources that we have in the platform itself. All right, so let's get into it. So my name is James Mather. My remit as part of your Microsoft account team is within Microsoft Business Applications. So from a technology perspective, this covers Dynamics 365 as well as Power Platform. I'm passionate about working with councils. I support 130 or so councils nationwide, and my role really entails how can I help council drive closer engagement with your community whilst reducing the cost to serve. Now, my experience working with councils has shown that most councils experience similar pains, around a growing number of corporate systems that house citizen and resident data, a lot of data silos, the lack of a single view of a citizen, as well as there's a big push towards digitalization of forms. So we see a lot of paper forms within council, as well as councils looking to deploy more citizen or customer-centric strategies, for things like self-service or omni-channel for really that personalized service delivery. So that's it for me. I've been working with sort of driving customer engagement, citizen engagement for the past sort of 8 years. So spent some time over at Salesforce, now in the world of Dynamics. So that's me. I'll briefly hand over to David and then Mark, who are presenting with me today.
Thanks, James. My name's David Horvath from Velrada, and I'm the Dynamics 365 practice lead in Queensland. So we'll go through some the presentation from a dynamic side and just give you some examples of how we've used the Power Platform to solve some council issues in the past.
Thanks, David.
And hello, my name is Mark Söster. I'm the Executive Director of Project Sensei Project Solutions. And I have the pleasure of showing you today how you can manage all of the work that comes in from all of your constituents in a meaningful and structured way, utilizing the Power Platform and managing your projects, your programs, and your portfolio. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, David. So I guess a couple of sort of key takeaways, or hopefully what you'll walk away from today's session. So, as part of today's webinar, we'll show you how you can start to leverage Microsoft's low-no-code development platform to start to remove manual processes and some of those time-consuming repetitive tasks. You'll hear how you can achieve greater visibility across council, managing things like budgets and gaining insight across your whole program of works, again, through Power Platform. Finally, you'll start to hear how you can connect and engage with both your teams and constituents more effectively, and really increasing that level of collaboration. So I thought I'd start with a quote from a study that was done by McKinsey recently. And no, I haven't been watching too many sci-fi films around robots taking over the world, but I thought it was really relevant in that the study showed that, whilst there's 5% of all occupations that could be automated entirely using available technologies, what was really interesting was that around 60% of all occupations have at least 30% of tasks and activities that could be automated. Now, I encourage you to start thinking about some of the manual or repetitive tasks at your council, be it paper forms, it might be manually handled spreadsheets, it might be manually copying data to consolidate email lists for communication. It could be manual efforts for surfacing back-end corporate information to field staff. Now, we know that councils are complex, right? You manage anywhere between 100 to 150 services and lines of business. And I guess with budgets being tighter than ever than they've ever been before, reducing the cost to serve and providing efficiencies and cost savings is more important now than ever. What are some of the challenges that are blocking innovation and speed of delivery of some of those tasks? Now, we've got some stats here from Forrester's State of Business Intelligence report. Now, it shows that 65% of businesses report an application development backlog. Now, the reality is that there just aren't enough people with the right skills to get through the amount of work. You may have resource or budget constraints, and so the need to engage with business users or citizen developers is becoming more apparent. The stat also showed that 37% of businesses are still using paper or spreadsheets to manage business critical processes. Now, think about some of the data that you store on paper or in a spreadsheet, such as, I mentioned things like capital works program and the pipeline there, timesheets, it could be HR forms, it could be some citizen-facing forms such as pet registration or kinder enrollments. As we know, there's a lot of risk there. With human input, there's always the possibility of error or an incomplete or incorrect document. Finally, the stat shows that nearly 3/4 of the respondents to the study showed that accelerating digital innovation and transformation is the primary reason they're embracing low-code application development. So look, I think a key takeaway from this slide is that, we're hearing the need for more agile business processes in order to support fast deployment and delivery of those solutions. And like I say, with budgets tighter than ever, the feedback that I'm hearing in the field is that most councils have expressed a desire to bring application development skills in-house and without the need to engage with costly .NET or C# developers and the like. All right, so we'll keep pushing through. So how can Power Platform help council achieve its strategic goals and the overarching mission? So using Power Platform, you can reduce the amount of time workers spend on repetitive processes and free them to work more closely with citizens. In turn, undoubtedly, this will provide a better experience, a better service to your constituents. Now, with mobile apps, council workers are no longer tied to their desks. It really gives them the ability to free them to work with the people where they need it most, whether that's from on site, on the field, from council chambers or at their homes. And so when your processes and project management workflows are digitalized, you know the status of improvement efforts, and you can easily report on the status of social investments. So the next one we've got here is, a unified set of data gives councils the ability to identify and address community challenges more effectively. So with Power Platform, we'll talk about this more. It's going to be a key theme throughout today's webinar, is that you can leverage this common data model. It's now called Dataverse. It's a fully managed cloud scale common data model for ingesting, managing, and analyzing your data across applications. Now, you can easily build artificial intelligence into your apps to handle some of those complex tasks or predict outcomes based on data. And with the resulting insights and capabilities, you can then start to identify challenges and implement solutions much faster. Now, we know that effective councils require the highest standards of trust, privacy, and security. Now, Power Platform supports these needs by providing a unified solution built on the highly secure and compliant Microsoft cloud. We share your commitment towards meeting those same compliance standards, and Microsoft have really demonstrated leadership in this area by extending the GDPR protections to citizens worldwide and not just within Europe. So, with that unified solution, it can really help support your applications for pretty much any need. You can also reduce the tendency for workers to use some of those software as a service platforms that may not meet government compliance and security standards. So that's just a really high level overview for the different components for how Power Platform can help. We'll take a bit of a dive into how this fits in with the broader Microsoft platform. All of the tools that we'll show you today are developed on Power Platform. So 4 components make up Power Platform. You may be invested in Power BI from an analytics perspective. You may have had some experience with Power Apps. Now, a common question that I get from councils is, what is a Power App? What are the types of use cases that it can help a council? Well, the easiest way to think about this is we often see that Excel is used for the wrong reasons. If you've got a really clunky spreadsheet, that's a great example for how we can maybe spin up a Power App to provide a more user-friendly experience for your employees. So Power Automate is the third component. This is low-code process automation. So think about some of the back office corporate systems you use, whether that's a Tech One, a Pathway, a Civica, and you need to push and pull information in between those systems. You've got the capability to do that, all based on drag and drop within Power Automate. And the final component is around Power Virtual Agents. Now, there's a couple of different scenarios in terms of the use case that this can help council for. The most common scenario is you've got that chatbot, it sits on the council's website, right? And it's used to handle repetitive requests. It might be, how do I register my pet? How do I pay my rates, etc. But we're seeing some of those use cases develop internally. So, think about a Power Virtual Agent that could pop up within Teams for project collaboration. It could be for onboarding. It could be around HR or IT requests. So we're really seeing some of those frequently asked questions can be managed within that bot framework. A couple of other things to call out with here. Whilst we can play nicely within the Microsoft stack, we've got over 400 connectors are included as part of the Power Platform. So like I say, if you've got some of those on-premise, or it might be a really archaic on-premise or SaaS solution that you need to integrate data with, we've got the capability to do that within Power Platform. Now, I touched upon AI Builder previously. The other key takeaway from this slide, team, is this concept of Dataverse. Now, this is that normalized common data model that sits across all of your Microsoft investments. Now, what does that basically mean? It means that if you develop a Power App, you don't need to essentially reinvent the wheel when you want to share the business logic and the data in Teams or potentially within Dynamics. They all use that same normalized common data model. The same goes for Office, Azure, and like I say, Dynamics. So you've really got that interoperability between some of the applications that you develop within the platform. We'll keep pushing on. So what I want you to take away from this slide is that, up until recently, I guess Microsoft weren't really able to tell the story of having, a full council solution, both front and back office. And the missing piece of the puzzle was this part down here, which was around rates. Now, we've now got partners that have developed that rates module within Dynamics Finance and Operations. And so when you start to think around some of the workloads that you can manage within Dynamics from a back office operational perspective around accounts, finance, inventory, assets, and rates, through to some of those line of business applications that you can see on the right-hand side, which is really my remit, it's around sort of customer engagement, things like omni-channel support, portals, live chat, field service, and CRM. So like I say, a key takeaway from this slide is that Microsoft now have that council solution. And if there's areas which might fall in with your sort of strategic goals, happy to tee up separate sessions if need be. All right, so before handing over to the team with Velrada, I will really quickly run through a couple of customer stories and a couple of use cases. Now, the first one is for one of our Victorian councils here in Australia, City of Ballarat. So City of Ballarat leverage a wide range of Microsoft platform across Azure, Teams, Office, Power Apps, Dynamics from a customer engagement perspective, as well as recently rolling out finance operations within Dynamics in order to serve its growing population. Now, what I really want you to take away from this story is that City of Ballarat now have around 40 internal citizen developers. Now, not all of those sit within IT, but this team is essentially spinning up low-code applications, automating workflows. They've really created that innovation hub within council where they can share ideas, collaborate on best practice, governance and administration. All of that side of it is really from a governance perspective. Now, some of the use cases that City of Ballarat have developed, start to think around some of the more niche workloads. It might be around, providing more user-friendly mobile applications for your school crossing inspections. It could be for things like managing staff rostering at libraries or swimming pools, or it might be for managing things like the council's gift register obligations. Now, I believe the last count was that City of Ballarat have developed around 350 Power Apps. Happy to introduce you guys to the team over at Ballarat. They'll probably hate me for saying that, but I think it's a great idea for how we can really reinforce that democratization of application development. And one quote that we got from Ballarat was around, if you can use an Excel spreadsheet, you can build a Power App. So I think it really reinforces that democratization. The next story I've got is from slightly further afield. It's for one of our councils based over in the UK, Colchester Borough Council. So council has really embraced Microsoft as an enterprise level cloud provider, leveraging the power of that unified approach to applications and infrastructure, including Power Platform. So council has really streamlined processes and provided that seamless borderless toolset to its staff when it moved into the cloud. I guess, again, key takeaway here, and a quote that I think really sums it up, is that Power Platform is for anyone. You don't need prior development experience. Whilst there may be some code, it really is developed to be around point and click. And so, we're really seeing that advancement of citizen development. I think that's probably enough from me. You've heard enough of my voice. I'm going to hand over to David from Velrada. David, over to you.
Thanks, James. So let me share my screen. Okay, look, as introduced myself earlier, the practice lead at Velrada, and I'll look mainly after D365 and the Power Apps that can be associated with it. Okay, so what we'll cover today, so we'll talk about as we go through some of the Power Platform capabilities. Turn the screen on. Some problems that faced by LGAs that we've previously seen, and how we can solve them, and I'll touch on some of the solutions that we've already provided, just to give some ideas and start to sow those seeds. So just quickly a bit about Velrada. We're a gold partner with Microsoft, and we're part of their inner circles for Dynamics as well. Okay, so some of the problems that we've seen at LGAs. So from the LGAs themselves, so James touched on some of this, but the rekeying of information, the Excels, the Word documents that repeating the information over and over again, different informations, submissions and follow-ups, emails being sent everywhere, different versions, who's got the right versions and so forth, lack of the omnichannel ability for communication. So, at the moment, or not at the moment, but a lot of community councils that we've seen, it's either emails or telephones. They're the main communication channels. But using the Power Platform, we've got the Power Agents, we've got the portals, we've got web chats and so forth that can be incorporated. No 360 degree of the residents. So because of disparate systems, we're finding a lot of the councils don't have a full view of their customers. And no source of truth of the data. Now that's for the LGAs, and for the constituents or your customers. There's no consistent way of filling out forms. Lack of tailored information from the residents. So they have to, a lot of the times, have to re-establish who they are. Nothing's tailored to them. The information is not tailored to their relationship with the council. There's a lack of information the information's there, but to be able to have it easily accessible. And a lot of councils still haven't gotten to the point of having that mobile capabilities. Okay, so how can we begin to solve these problems by utilising the Power Platform? So some of the things that Power Platform, where it can start helping, it's using the Dataverse and normalising all that data, we can start to get a source of truth, all your vendors and all your constituents all in the one place. So whether it doesn't matter which line of business or departments is accessing information about constituents, it's all coming from the one place. We can manage communication across various channels, as I mentioned, so web chats, it could Power Agents, and so forth. We can improve the business processes. We can have automatic approvals that come through. If the business process can be outlined, we can have it automated from a request coming in, for example, of a new bin required. If they meet all the requirements, we can have that approval process going, automated all the way through to sending out a request to the bin delivery company. The information that needs to be accessed by the LGAs, it can be done through a number of ways. It can be done via the web, it can be accessed through MS Teams, or it can be done via a mobile Power app, and we'll go into that in our demo a little bit later. And we can integrate both ways with legacy systems. As James said, there's 40 odd connectors that can be available using and leveraging off the Azure platform as well, where we can integrate with these systems. Now, for the external users, so using the Power Portal, we can get them to log in and give them access through logging in. That way, we can identify them. We can tailor information for them. We can tailor requests, the information that we know they want, and we can present that information. We can provide a clear and searchable way of communicating. We can use knowledge bases to help the constituents gather the information based on by keywords that they're entering, because we know what they're after, we know who they are as well, and as well as the self-service, so information can be accessed at any time when the constituents need that information. Now, I just wanted to put this slide up. It goes a little bit deeper than the one that James showed before. So we've still got the automation, the Power BI, we've got the CDS, which is now the Dataverse, and the Power Virtual Agent. So this is all part of the platform. But up here, we can start to show, so for the employees, we can either access the information through a model-driven app, which is on the desktop, throughout the web, or a Canvas app, which can be accessed over the mobile. And we'll show some of this information in our demo. And for the customers, they can have a Power Portal where they can log into the information and start logging some requests. They can get communication, see what information, see what communication has been sent to and from within the council. And we've also got the customer voice, which is a great way of asking questions, feedback from the constituents as well. Okay. Okay, so how can we leverage the platform for the next step? So some of the first ways we can get started is we can digitize a manual process, or we can re-engineer a current legacy application. So an old application that we can look to take it and update it using the Power Platform. We can provide mobility to one of those old on-prem databases or applications that may not be ready to fully convert into a SaaS or into a cloud version. Or we can start with implementing something like Dynamics 365 to get started as a main way of getting started on the platform, and then we can use that information. And I'll show this in our demo, and then start adding Power Apps to Dynamics for certain aspects of the business. So we can start with your constituents and your vendors and maybe an internal process, but we can leverage that using Power Apps, and I'll demonstrate that as we go through the demonstration. Okay, so I just want to touch on the digitize the process. So how do we start? How do we get started? Well, we define a problem to solve. So what's something that's a manual, repeatable process that we can look at and start to work towards creating a Power App or using the Power Platform to solve this problem. We'll set some success criteria. So what processes or part of the process do we need to digitize? What's the minimum viable outcome? So we'll have to make sure that it's going to be worth the time and effort, and what's time and budget to allocate to this objective. And then we can put a pilot together, and so we can walk through and demonstrate how that manual process can be automated and digitalized. And then we've got here on the right here is emails come in, they go into a spreadsheet, and then we can use the Power Platform to grab the details out of the emails, and instead of using a spreadsheet, we can put that information into a systemized process. Okay, we can provide mobility to on-prem data. So we just touched on this. So we may have a system that we need the field workers to be able to interact with that system. So instead of writing it down on a piece of paper, coming back into the office and filling that information, we can create a Power App so that information can be captured quickly and accurately. All right, just want to go, so a couple of examples where we've provided using the Power Platform in councils. So for Shoalhaven, they put it together for the bushfires response to the platform. So we had to create an app for field inspectors. So they needed to accurately get the property locations, who the owner was, and provide inspections. So to do this, we're using the Power Platform, using a connector to Bing Maps. We can use that information to accurately locate the property, and so when we send somebody out to a location, we know exactly where it is. Central Coast, they wanted to surface the work orders via the mobile. So using some of the functionality of Dynamics 365, a Canvas app was created so techs could go out into the field, have access to the work orders, see where their work orders, and then open the work order, see all the details, and manage that information using the using a Canvas Power App. I'm going to demonstrate a little bit of this in our demo a little bit later on. Okay, just want to go through some of the other examples just to get people thinking about some of the solutions that we can solve using Power Apps. These are some of our solutions we provided to other councils. So pet management. So we can manage pet owners, where the pets are located, and the animal details using the model-driven app. So that's managed using the web interface. That information then can be quickly, with low and no code, create a Canvas app. So rangers, when they're on site, they find an animal, they can put in a mobile number or any tag or a registration number on the animal and locate the information, locate who the owner is, and so forth. Using the Power Automate in this solution, we can generate invoices and remind of upcoming fees to have animals registered. Power BI can report on different information about all the animals we've got in our database, how many of types of breed, density, location, age, so we can get an understanding of the population of the animals in a certain area or council location. And the Power Portal, well, this is where owners can register their pets, keep it up to date information, tell us if they've got a new pet or if a pet's passed on or no longer needs to be managed and so forth. So there's an example that we've done before. Resident waste management, same sort of thing. We model-driven app to manage the process and the booking. A Canvas app for the field workers, so they're while in the field, they can manage it. And again, the Power Automate to automate reminders, confirmation, BI to report, and so forth. So there's just a few other examples where we've used the Power. Again, pool safety. So again, someone's on the field, they want to do a safety check. We don't want to write it down, go back in the office and fill out the information. Using the Power App, information is straight into the Dataverse or the common data model. Okay. We also wanted to highlight one of the Power Apps that Velrada's created called the Power Roster and Power Worker. This is a solution that we put together to manage rostering within councils and organisations. So you can put in detailed requirements, how many people per shift, or if there's an upcoming event where you need to roster more people, and we can put in those metrics and it'll create a roster. And then that roster integrates with Outlook and Teams, so users can log into their teams, see what shifts they've been allocated to, and manage their rostering and their availability as well. Okay, so what's beyond the first step? So what we can start looking, we can expand and move the processes, provide more information, governance and control, and they're the big ones. So the automation, so everybody, once they go into a process, emails are uniform, the governance is adhered to, and the systems control, which takes out that the chance of human error. Solutions and modules, so we can transform functions and department using the platform. So we have a center point for all the processes. Again, it's that same experience for all the constituents. Using the portal and the app, we're providing that mobility for the workers out on the field, and integration and the reporting. I mean, at the end of the day, we've got all this data, and using the strength of Power BI integration, we can leverage that information and start to report on it and build our metrics into those reports. Okay, so now I'm going to hand over to Mark, and then we'll come back for the demo a little bit later on. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, David. Great presentation. All right. I hope you are able to see my screen any second now.
We can see it.
Awesome. All right. My name is Mark Söster, as I said earlier. Well, and we are very much focusing on the area of making work, improving the way you work. And when I listen to James as well as to David, you know, the one thing always comes to my mind, really, and I think that that picture depicts it actually quite nicely. You know, why do we work? Well, only because you know, we've always done it this way, and I think especially in areas where there's a lot of process paperwork, as James said, you know, everything that we can do in Excel, we can actually automate and we can centralize and we can make that consistent, is really what the Power Platform enables us to do. Now, when it comes to Sensei, we want to ensure that we improve that way we work, and we do this through our project portfolio management solution, leveraging the great power of Office 365 and the Power Family, the Power Platform, with the reporting and automation and user experience, enabling us literally to ensure that the work that you do is prioritized, combined into projects, into programs, portfolios, and then also mapped against your strategic goals. Just from we've been doing this for a very long time. It feels like 150 years. It's been 12 now, I believe. We are in Australia and America. Our focus really is the technology stack, the digitalization of processes, but we understand that in particular work project portfolio management is actually a business solution, ensuring that we have the ability to map those processes so deeply into the solution that the end user doesn't really know that they follow that, and that is super important to us. Now, the three main areas that we focus on is really, on one hand, the digital solution, and that's what I'm going to present today. But ultimately, what we are doing is, just like James and like David said, we are mapping and automating processes to the digital solution to eliminate mundane work and ensure a user experience so that every single user has the ability to utilize that digital solution, that it really becomes part of their day-to-day work within their Office 365 environment. Now, why are we doing this? Again, referencing James, everything can be done in Excel spreadsheets. We see that all the time. We've got quite a few councils, obviously, as our clients, and quite a few of them are here online. But we have seen, and we see that all the time, that information, in our instance, project information, is really dispersed across the organization in many different pockets of data information, in documents, in spreadsheets, in schedules. But how can we bring that together? And when we think about that on a bigger picture, work that we do, that we then combine into projects, often form a puzzle piece of a bigger picture, and projects obviously are often managed based on the puzzle piece of program and portfolio management being a puzzle piece of these bigger chunks of work. And these bigger chunks of work, programs and portfolios, ultimately we plan and execute them to accomplish our council goals, our strategic goals. And when I look at the amount of data volume that is spread across an organization, to manage that in a cohesive and meaningful manner, that's actually quite difficult and can very much be a manual process. So what we've been doing is, on the example of the Power Platform, we've been looking at the business needs. On one hand, ensuring that we know how to do work consistently in a project management environment, how we actually ensure that the work that we do is meaningful in the portfolio management area, and of course then having the ability to map that to our strategic goals so that our constituents at any point in time know that the promises that we make, that we actually fulfill them as well. I show you this on a use case in our product, which is Sensei IQ. Sensei IQ is really built for enterprises and designed for the end user, ensuring that the usability of managing projects, in particular programs and portfolios, is very intuitive. Now, we built that information really on the Microsoft Office 365 stack. I always like to say Microsoft is the architect and Sensei the interior designer. With all of the great power of the Power Platform, not only do we provide a software as a service solution in the PPM space, but it actually enables you as the council staff member the ability to simply enhance that through the no-code, low-code capability. No matter whether these are certain business processes, these are continuously evolving, of course, and need to be changed. No matter whether you have different execution tools, whether it's MS Project or Project for the Web or Planner, we combine all of these execution tools together, allowing you to conduct that work. And of course, we visualize that in Power BI, and I'll show you that in the demonstration a bit earlier. The important bit for us, though, is the ability to allow every single team member, no matter whether it is a team member participating of a project or whether it is the executive, ensuring that the council ship is stirred into the right direction, that they stay within their work environment of Office 365. And we ensure that through the consistent user experience that was mentioned before, the Power Apps. And as we know, this is not just a PPM solution, it is literally a digitalization and user experience of digitalizing every single process within your council. Things that you do manually can fully be automated, and that's super important for us. And as David mentioned earlier as well, the power of Power Apps actually enables us out of the box to integrate with any kind of line of business system that you currently have, whether this is Finance One, whether it's SAP, whether it's your asset management or your HR management solution. You can combine them into a cohesive and meaningful business capability, all wrapped around, of course, the Dataverse that we've said earlier. So with no further ado, I wanted to make sure that we now go into the use case scenario, the demonstration, where Velrada and we are going to show you how you can actually knit those solutions together, those needs together in a case scenario here where a constituent actually reports an issue, the council then reviews that issue and comes up with an idea for the resolution through the portal. Through the Power Portal that's possible, and David will present that. We then will take this idea and see whether we want to prioritize that as a business case, which ultimately becomes a project and which ultimately becomes part of a strategic portfolio for the organization, ensuring that every single internal member as well as constituents knows that we actually do something against that particular issue. And with that, I'm going to hand over to David. David, if you could showcase the first part of that showcase.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a constituent who wants to log an issue that they've found. So just to save time, I'm not going to log in, but I've already pre-logged in. So Josh is logged in, and we can see he can have a look at view his cases, previous cases that he's created, or he can create a new case. So we're going to create a new case. So this is the Power Platform. So this is directly the data in here is in the Dataverse, and it's if I update information. So if I log if I go into my profile, I update the information here, and it's all based on security access. The information will be updated directly and instantaneously into the Dataverse. So Josh wants to open up a case, and the case is for the parks mess with rubbish everywhere. As soon as he's put in some information in title, you can see here that there's using the Power Platform and knowledge bases. We've found that there's a knowledge base that's related to a park. So we can click on the knowledge base, and it's going to open up a record about council repairs and maintenance procedure. So we can start to answer the constituents' information and questions without them having to look for the information or even having to ring us and find the information. Click on here, found the answer, and we're done. In this case, though, I want to continue with the login a case because it didn't quite meet what I was after. So we can go in here. What sort of request is it? It can either be waste service or parks. So we've got a couple of options. Again, all this information is coming from the Dataverse, so it makes it consistent and reportable, and we can automate it because we know the details behind these options. So I'm just going to go general inquiry, parks mess. Okay, so I can sit here. Do I agree with the terms and conditions? I consent for the personal information to be collected. Yes, I do. I could upload a photo here of the mess if I want to. In this case, I'm just going to submit my request. Okay. One of the other things that we can do on the home page, we can use the chatbot, which is Power Agent, and this can be used to automate that process that I've just done right now with the case. So if I type in bins, we can configure. This is all no code, low code, no code options here in configuration. So we put in bins, and the system goes, okay, what about the bin? What's the location? All right, so if I put in a location here, it's going to go and look at the information. Okay, so it knows who I am because the address is in the system, and then we can go through different. So it's giving me some options. So what type of case is it, and so forth. And this can log a case automatically for me as well. So I'm just going to go through. So go to the case that I've just submitted previously. Okay, so here's one I obviously already had. Click in here, I can see here now my case that I've just been submitted by Josh online is come straight into the Dataverse. Now, I'm showing this option, this demo using the Dynamics Field Service application. So, and I wanted to show, so this is showing how we can send out a technician out into site, and then we'll use the Power Apps to manage some additional information. So, if I go into the case that's just been created, okay, so I can have a look at the details. I can use the business process flow across the top to automate some process or guide the user to gather the information that we need. So do we need to contact an authority? What are the considerations? I can add some information in there. Otherwise, I can just go to the next stage. I can add some extra comments. Is the neighbour property advised? Well, I don't need to, so I'm just going to go to the next stage. And from here, I can go, right, I want to send somebody out to investigate. So I can go and create a work order, fill out some information. So what sort of incident is it? Well, it's park maintenance. It's in the Brisbane area. It's in the Sydney East area. And I'm just going to save this record. Oops, so what's the status? It's unscheduled at the moment because I haven't assigned anyone to the job. Okay, so it's going to go and save that record. And now I'm going to choose Scott to go out there and have a look at it, have a look at the job. And I'll go out today and we'll go out this afternoon at 2 o'clock. And I reckon it's going to take him an hour. Now, some of these processes can be automated based on business rules. Okay. And we'll have this scheduled and away we go. Okay. So that's going to create a booking for Scott to go out there and see. So I'm just going to flip over to my mobile interface, and so I can show you how a field worker will use the Power App applications to manage this information. Okay. All right. So as a field worker, I can come in here. I can have a look at my bookings for the day or week. I'm just going to get this refreshed. And now we can see here the one that I've just created called Please Check Park. So we can go in, we can have a look at the details. I can have a look, see if the park, see what the problem is. I've noticed there's yep, there's an issue, there's rubbish everywhere. And I found that there's not many bins out here. So I'm going to complete my job. So that's completed, and I'm going to save that and discard that now. Okay, so I've completed my job, but while I'm out here, I found I found a stray dog, and I want to know who the owner is. So I can go into my app, my Power App that we've created, and I've seen that the dog's got a tag on there. So I want to have a look at the tag, and I can see the tag 6789. Okay, let's just see if we've got that dog registered. Oh, there it is, Fluffy. And I can see that Fluffy's at in George's Terrace, and here's a phone number. I can call them, tell them I found the dog. So straight away, I'm grabbing the information that's been updated by the client, by the constituents on the Power portal, and I can quickly find that information while I'm out in the field. Now, while I'm out on the field as well, I've got an idea that we need to clean up these parks. Okay, so I've got an idea, and I want to log this idea into the system. So let's go park bins waste idea. Oops. Okay. As you can see, I'm not the fastest typer. So what I can use, because it's all part of the mobile functionality, I can actually just use some of the mobile functions to start filling this information to make it quick for me. Okay. So based on feedback from our constituents, we have come up with an idea to provide bins across all of our parks. It will ensure that we are a greener and cleaner council. Okay, so I've done that, and I'm going to submit that into the ideas register, and that's going to create a record in the Dataverse or in the Power Apps, and then automated systems can kick in, and the process and the process around that can start. And with that, I'm going to hand that back over to Mark, and Mark's going to go through the rest of the demo.
Awesome, David. That's really good. It's amazing what what an app can do, and how much time you save by simply maintaining information once and never having to worry about it again. I think the Dataverse just really breaks those boundaries quite dramatically. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Well, David's staff member went on site and came up with an idea, and no doubt do we have lots and lots of different ideas, and need to think about how we can actually look at ideas. Now, what you see here right now is really the ideas register of the council, based on the feedback that you get either from your constituents or, of course, from your staff members. Now, in that instance, we have a bit of a funnel here that determines how many ideas do we have based on our impact. And we have a bit of an ideas register, a matrix where we look at the risk score versus the amount of effort that it would take to ultimately actually implement those kinds of ideas and promote them to become a proposal or a business case. Now, in that instance, let me just open that up a little bit more, and I can see there's a whole bunch of ideas, and really, ideally, I want to have a risk or an idea that has a low risk and, well, ideally a low effort. And let me have a look at this one here. The waste paper bin in every park. Well, that is actually a really good idea. And we have the ability to see that idea that was just entered by the staff member. Now, of course, you have the ability to break that down based on certain themes that the council has and that we want to report against certain portfolios. And I have a greener and cleaner council portfolio or theme here that allows me now to look at all of these ideas that are currently in the run. So we have a walkway idea and a waste paper bin idea, and here's now the park bin waste idea that was entered. That was entered through the mobile phone. Okay, let me have a look at what we can do here. Now, the initial information that came through the mobile app, which was the name, and also the description that was actually just simply recorded and translated into words, are already entered. And we now, as the council and as a group, can determine what that idea could mean, whether for what department it is, what the initial cost may well be, what kind of organizational relevance it has, and of course, what kind of risk, effort, and even impact this particular idea has. Now, in that instance, we've identified that ideas, and as we've seen earlier, these guiding business processes really will ensure that the intuitivity of maintaining the data is upheld, and at the same time consistent and trustworthy. And very often with paper-based information, not only don't we know in which kind of black ether it lands, we don't even know whether the information that we provide is actually always consistent. And in that instance, that is the case. Now, I want to make sure in that particular part that we are in the process of reviewing this idea. And as you can see, this review has been submitted, and we have now as a group also completed this review. And we've decided in that particular instance that we actually want to create a proposal or a business case out of that. So based on that, we just simply finish the idea and accept the idea, so that we know that it is now part of our proposal or of our business case. Now, usually another group generally outlines those, and you can do this, of course, on a departmental basis or on a PMO basis, but then generally we have a list of proposals that we then, or business cases that we then want to review, and again want to introduce a business process flow to ensure that we know that we prioritize the right business case to be promoted as a project and become part of a program or portfolio. In that instance, I can see I've got an initiation and selection stage, and I've got a whole bunch of different proposal, of course, including also our park bin proposal as part of that, which is great. Now, of course, you have the ability to look at them in a whole bunch of different ways. These are now all of the proposals that we currently have, utilizing the Power Apps family, where you already have the ability to very easily determine certain graphs, certain filters, by sponsor, for example, or by department. And here right now, we want to ensure that we actually drill into that park bin waste idea that we've just created from the idea. So in that instance, we now again have the ability, of course, to very easily determine who should actually maintain that data. And the proposal in my instance actually takes the initial park bin waste idea name. We could also determine that we automatically update descriptions, etc. So all of the information that we ultimately need, and I'm just going to call this here now the business case, because this becomes a business case where we then add additional information. This could be, of course, date-related information, departmental related information, investment category information regarding the business case, and of course also the benefits behind that, as well as potential, high-level proposal cost, and also the benefit that it potentially has. Now, the important bit for us really is also not only to determine those kinds of general information, business case data, but also we want to be able to prioritize these business cases to see whether they're actually aligned to our strategy. So in that instance, $20,000, what is the investment when I mouse over? Well, the investment is between 11 and 50,000, so $20,000 really is a medium size investment. And look at the organizational impact. I can see actually the impact to the organization when it comes to the change management capability is relatively low. The organizational risk, well, there is really maybe some risk, so that people may hurt themselves on the waste bin, but the strategic alignment when it comes to our strategy is actually quite high and extreme, because we will directly contribute to our strategic goals in our instance. Now, how do I know that we do this? Well, not only do I have the ability to determine the general prioritization, but more so I can now also associate this proposal to our goals, to our council goals. Now, our council goals outlined here are really, in that instance, the city green parks would be part of this particular proposal that I would want to outline, which actually now gives me a description and again gives me an association towards those strategic goals. And I can now rate this particular business case to say, hey, this is a medium, adding new mini park or adding new bins to the park, and this will give me a rating score that I can then rate against. So I would literally have the ability to determine how those business cases are then managed. Now, in my instance, we have now completed, of course, this business case. And we have received the initial departmental approval here, and we go to the next stage and now need to ask our sponsor whether they are actually willing to sponsor this as a project. And what I can do here is now literally outline the initial sponsor, and I just simply finish that off, finish that process of business case process through, so that my that my sponsor has the ability to determine whether they want to support that project or not. Now, by the way, these kinds of prioritization when it comes to the business rating can of course easily be viewed. So if I am a sponsor and I will actually now need to make the decision which kind of the business cases do I want to approve, I have the ability to look at all of my proposals with the organizational impact or the different impact pillars that we have, including potential return on investment and priority rating, only because a high return on investment doesn't necessarily mean that the priority rating is higher. Now, in that instance, I'm in charge of transforming the organization, and I would like to look at all of these different proposals. And here's then my cost-benefit analysis that I can open up and literally see now in my transformation all of the different proposals that I have, including, of course, the paper bin or the park bin proposal, where I have the ability to literally look at what is the difference between my benefit and my cost, and what does the council get out of it. So that kind of capability is very easily adopted to your organizational specific or council specific prioritization, and can then ensure that you have a consistent approach for managing all of the ideas that are coming into proposals and ultimately into, of course, projects. I am the sponsor, or I mark myself as the sponsor, and I've just received my email that says, hey, I would like to have the request of the park bin waste business case, where I have now all of the information. I could open up that particular proposal, just simply utilizing my Office 365 environment. In that instance, I can see my proposal, description, problem description, business case, benefit, and I can now either approve or reject that. Now, in my instance, I will just simply approve it. And what it does now is it takes the business case and translates that into a project. It will notify the business case owner or the PMO in that instance, saying, hey, there is now my proposal or my business case that has been approved. And as you can see in that instance, I have my, I'm logged on as Mr. Sensei IQ has approved this particular proposal. I could go into the original proposal, or I can now go into my project, which I will do. Now, in that instance, the first thing that I would need to do, and this can of course be automated, I would need to determine, hey, what kind of a project is that? Is that a major project, a minor project? And really that depends, or an agile project, that depends then on the business flow or the business process that we want to adopt against that project. That is important because it will continue that automation and navigation of the business process flow that in that instance now a project manager needs to follow through, from a planning to an execution to a closing stage. And of course, I have the ability to then maintain all of the artifacts that I have received from my business case are automatically part of that. And of course, I can now extend that capability and the artifacts for this particular project. Now, I'm going to go into an existing project, if that's okay. Otherwise, it's going to be boring you seeing me filling in the information. And what I wanted to showcase here is really how data flow goes through, how data goes through the business process flow. However, that doesn't have to be just simply in Power BI, in Power Apps. You can actually do this directly in your Teams environment, again, utilizing the power of the Office 365 capability. And if your council has already adopted Teams, which I truly hope, this is obviously the platform that we are using here, we can now see all of our proposals and all of our projects actually as part of our Teams environment. And that's where we collaborate here as well. So I can now, of course, easily manage and find my project. This is my park waste bin implementation. Again, I've just created that to fill it in with a little bit of data. And as a project manager, I can now actually work in my Teams environment from the initial idea. The information is, of course, now linked: idea, business case, project. And I can now invite, for example, in my instance, I want to ensure that that I have a vendor that installs all of those paper bins, all of those park bins, and I can invite that external vendor now to participate as part of my team's collaboration capability, where I literally not only have the ability to manage my content, but of course I can now share things like documents, business cases, even claims, purchase orders. All of those things can actually be managed directly in Teams. So in that particular instance, my external vendor has actually uploaded a park bin example of what he would like to implement. Let me have a look at that one. Yep, that looks great. This is exactly what we are looking for. Nicely green for the nature. And of course, it allows me to manage all of my litter. And again, of course, you can post information, you can exchange information, update data, you can directly email to this channel so that the information that you have as a project manager is always easily available. Now, in my instance, as a project manager, of course, I want to track my projects. I went through the planning stage where I looked at the scope, and I'm now in the execution stage where I actually resolved most of the projects part, and I'm now in the closing stage. Now, as part of that, I have certain key dates that I need to uphold. In that instance, I can see that, hey, we completed most of our key dates, but my agreement to installation, so the contract is on track, but this has been completed now. And I just drag and drop it over so that I know that that information has been completed. In particular, when it comes to vendor payments, that's super important, because what I can do is, as a project manager, I can now look at my financial budget, where I look at my budget over that particular amount of time, and I can see that my budget is actually a hardware budget. These are all of the bins that I need to purchase, of course, and I want to know whether they have actually been installed. And I just simply look at my key dates and can actually see, yeah, look, these key dates have been fulfilled, and therefore I have the ability to purchase, to release the purchase order for payment. There's a whole bunch of capabilities that you can have. How do I update a project as a project manager, for example? Well, in that instance, as you can see, I already updated my project to be formally reported to my team twice with snapshotting it. And when I want to create a new status update, it actually brings all of the information as from the system, from Dataverse to me. And as a project manager, all I really need to do now is give it a status state, and I have now all of the artifacts automatically calculated, or if you want them to manually maintain it, that's fine too, where I, as a project manager, just simply have to add my text, and not just a big blob text, but a text to each of the artifacts that I currently manage, whether these are deliverables, schedule, work, etc. And that's all I need to do. I say save and close, and I've now updated my project progress. That, of course, in turn means I can update that and can create things like a project status report for my internal team and for my internal key stakeholders. In that instance, it's just a paginated report that I can export into a PDF or into a Word document. In that instance, I'll just show you on the second page is my budget, and then all of the different key dates that we've just done, and deliverables and updates that we have just gone to. So that's, on one hand, of course, the ability for me to report against it in a meaningful and consistent way internally. But how can I now ensure that this information is also reportable externally? Well, we have the ability, of course, to publish those kinds of reports, and the update that I've just conducted in my project can actually be, in our instance, be seen for constituents. So they may not want to have the detailed information of all of the projects, but I can certainly update them based on their key performance indicators. And if we really want to, here's my park waste bin project with my comments that I've just updated, so that the constituents at any point in time can also see how the progress of that particular project is. If we wanted to, we can bring it all the way down that we actually provide them, well, with what I call a one-pager, where I look at date-related information, trend-related information, the status updates, and also the milestones, in my instance, the upcoming milestones that we want to display and outline so that the constituents at any point in time know what they want. It is always a balance how much information we provide, of course. That being said, when we say the information is on a project level, but most organizations and most councils actually want to more outline that on the strategic portfolio level. And in that instance, we do have the ability to just simply outline that. Remember this idea, really make it a greener and cleaner council actually forms part of my overarching portfolio, strategic portfolio of becoming a greener and cleaner council. There's a bigger one here, resilient, inclusive local communities, for example. But as an executive, I definitely have the ability to see whether I actually work towards my budget. In that instance, it's an underspend. We can actually see that quite often in councils, that's an issue. And I can now, of course, drill into that particular portfolio where my project really is part of that. So in that instance, my greener and cleaner portfolio, I do have a bit of a variance, some underspending. Again, I can see that also on my graphs. And I have the ability now from an executive perspective and potentially even from a constituent perspective to look at my portfolio. In that instance, I can see it's a reasonably high risk portfolio right now because we have certain risks associated to them and issues. But again, I have all of my programs and projects, sub-projects that form part of this particular portfolio nicely available, and can again view them, could even drill into a project just like we've done that before. And from an executive perspective, you may even want to look more into the financial areas. And I can see here again my overarching budget of that particular portfolio. Well, how does my current park waste bin implementation actually stack up against the budget? Let me have a look at that. And it literally says, well, here's the budget and here's the actuals and forecasts. We are slightly over here. I can see that and again have literally the data readily available so that I can make the right decision at the right time, where I can drill into the data set in that instance of my data from a financial perspective, CapEx, OpEx, all of these wonderful things that Power BI provides you as part of that overarching Power family. With that, here, oh no, can you hear me? Sorry, I was gone for a second here. With that, I just want, can you hear me?
Still good, Mark.
Yeah, good. Oh, thank goodness. With that, I wanted to quickly just summarize what we've gone through, and a prime example of how the Power family, through no-code, low-code capability, allows us to manage information from constituents all the way to the fulfillment of the promise that we as a council give, in our instance, the greener and cleaner council. And with that, I'm going to bring it back to James.
Get myself off mute. Thank you, Mark. Awesome presentation. I hope everyone has found this insightful. I realise that we've ran over slightly, and so I'll quickly wrap up in terms of a sort of call to action. You guys hopefully can see my screen. So I guess we've shown you a number of areas that Power Platform can potentially help with council. I guess start to think about some of the use cases that we can develop across Power Platform, whether it's a manual spreadsheet through to a fully blown capital works program. It really, I'm a firm believer of, let's give it a try. There might be an area we can look to, conduct a small POC or a pilot, right through to a more hands-on envisioning workshop, which would really enable you to create a number of sort of what-if scenarios and serve as that blueprint for imagining what transformation looks like with the platform. So we'll be following up with you all. You'll receive the recording of the session. You'll receive the decks that we presented today. Like I say, if there's any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat now. Hopefully we got through all of those as part of the session. But once again, thanks a lot for your attendance today. We'll be following up with you all, and thanks again.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, thanks, James. Thanks, Mark. Great job.
Yeah,
Thanks,
awesome.
guys.
See ya.
Thanks, James.
Thank you all.